All right, you bug catchers, it's time to dust off your starter jackets, rip off those tearaways and blow into your game cartridges. I'm Sam Blanford.
Ben Simpson.
And I'm Sean Kelly. And we wish it was the 90s.
All right, you Poke fans, we are here. Sean, you're back. You missed last week. I hear you've started another money-making venture without us.
People have noticed my social media skills and running the cutter for New Zealand indoor cricket team while they're away.
How's that a better... Didn't you say Charlotte thought it was going to be better in terms of making money?
Yeah, I think there might be some potential ramifications for it.
You are very good on social media.
Yeah, it's a tough gig doing it remotely.
Do you want to do a spiel? Oh, actually, Simpson, great to have you on.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I feel like the kid not getting picked for a football game at the playground until you sent me the message today, so I'm very excited.
You're like when Homer has all those cuts when he runs Bart's football team.
Really how I felt.
Do you want to do a social media spiel now, Bob?
Yeah, well, we are on Instagram and Twitter at WIWT90S. We've got a YouTube channel that's really picked up steam lately in the comments section. Another shout out for my man, Ruben and Jace Toy. And someone else commented as well, actually. Forgive me for getting your name, sir, but thank you. I'll check it in a minute. And also, you're already listening to this if you're here, but a little like, maybe a review, 5 stars, say what you want. And if you like us, maybe ask your wife to download the podcast and listen to it on mute.
Or when you go to sleep, it's good. We've got the tones of our voice are good for that.
Mm-hmm. The Final Fantasy 7 episode marathon is quite good at putting me to sleep.
Definitely put me to sleep a few times as well.
All right. We are delving into Pokemon today, specifically Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, or Gen 1. Pokemon was developed by Game Freak, published by Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. It was first released in 1996 in Japan, but didn't make it to the shores of Aotearoa until late 1998. And I can remember this time and who I was talking to when I found out about Pokemon. I don't know about you two, but we're gonna go into our memories shortly. We're going to talk about the differences in the 3 red, blue, and yellow versions. Talk about the starting Pokemon. Talk about some overrated, underrated, and go-to Pokemon for us, and maybe go into some gyms and side quests and things at the end. But Ben, specifically, the first time you heard about Pokemon or the first time playing Pokemon, what are your memories?
Yeah, so mine are from the TV show, actually. So Cheese TV was a big TV show in Australia. 7:30 on Channel 10 in the morning. So I used to wake up and straight into Pokemon. It was back-to-back episodes. So I was a huge fan of the TV show and then got the game from there. So I started off with Red and obviously thrashed that. And then Yellow came out, and because Yellow aligned with the TV show, I was infatuated. I always used to call myself Ash in the game. And always made the villain Gary, no matter what, because I was all about the authenticity of it.
Nice. What about yourself, Sean?
So I don't recall when it came out, but I recall it becoming a really big deal quite fast. As you said, it came out at the end of 1998, which I was in Year 7 Form 1 at Hunter Media. But I definitely got the game maybe for Christmas, and I got Blue. I played it religiously, and it suited my gaming enthusiasm for grinding.
Yeah.
And probably my greatest memory actually was I'm as you know, I'm a completionist, and I really wanted all 150.
Surely not.
I learnt later the Mew glitch, and when I went to unlock him, I'd already fought the fighters that you had to fight to unlock him and couldn't.
Oh,
And I'd already finished the game at that point, but yeah, I didn't play it again until maybe I was in my mid-20s on a Game Boy simulator on my phone. But probably my greatest memory was sitting in H8 at Hutt Intermediate on a Friday morning before school started, and a great friend of mine at the time, Michael Ives.
Ives.
Mives brought his cable. He'd finished the game. I hadn't at that point. So before he restarted his game, he gave me all of the red Pokemon I didn't have.
Oh, what a legend.
And then he restarted his game so I could get Bulbasaur, and then he restarted his game so I could get Squirtle.
Man, the myth, the legend.
Oh, mate, it's that and my first Pash are greatest memories of 1999.
Oh, that's good. That's going to lead into our red, blue, yellow discussion quite nicely. Yeah, I didn't own a Game Boy, so I remember I was at Petone Central, and my friend Luigi, he did have a Game Boy, and he got the game pretty much as soon as it came out. And me, Tim Rice, and James Gibb used to play Pokemon, pretend we were Pokemon, and he would talk about it, and I pretended that I did have the game. I just said, yeah, I'm up to this, Jim, etc. Just a little bit behind him. But then our good friend, still good friend, James Dalgleish, who he was into his computers, bought round a floppy disk that had Pokemon Red on it, which we booted into our computer, and Simon, much like a lot of my childhood, Simon played a lot and I watched a lot of the Pokemon being played. So we were Pokemon Red, and I think it always pissed me off that you couldn't get 150 unless you traded. I just felt I didn't really like that about the game. What about yourself, Ben?
That's exactly my thoughts on it as well. So I was Pokemon Red, which I feel is the superior of the two, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But really irritated me you couldn't get all 150. That was a big, because as an only child as well, no one else in my household was going to have a Game Boy that I could trade with. I had to search out friends that were at the same level as me and things like that to trade with, and it was just a kerfuffle, really. So,
you needed a Mives.
Needed a Mives.
Everyone needs a Mives.
It's an amazing story. What a legend.
So I was just going to chime in. Like, there's an element of the cable system that's awesome, right? Being able to play against someone with your Pokemon. But yeah, I feel the same way about not getting all 150 by yourself. And even more frustrating when you're playing it on a simulator as a grown man and that option's not there for you.
Yeah, there were other options on the PC. So there was you could put in Game Shark cheats, and you could type in a little number, and then anytime you walked around in the long grass, a number was specific to a Pokemon. So if you put in 61, every time you walked in the long grass, say a Poliwag would pop up every single time. Or there was a number for Mew. There was a number for every Pokemon. So that was a way you could get around it, but I didn't really like cheating. All right, we've got the differences between red, blue, and yellow. I played yellow a little bit. But more I played with my cousin Ollie and Elliot. They had yellow and a Game Boy. I played red, which I thought was superior, but looking at these differences, I reckon blue's better.
The grass is always greener, in my opinion, because I had a look at the Pokemon exclusives for blue and red, and for some reason, even when I played on the emulator, I played blue because I'm loyal to my blue version of the game. Felt like red had maybe the superior run of the Pokemon there, in my opinion.
Ben, do you know? Should we go through the exclusive Pokemon?
Go through the exclusives.
Okay, so the Pokemon that were in red and not in blue. So these are the ones you couldn't get, Sean. Ekans, and therefore Arbok. Bit of a dud. Electabuzz. Oddish, Gloom, and Vileplume. Scyther, Mankey and Primate, and Growlithe and Arcanine. Only one that really stands out for me there, and it's Arcanine.
Great. Arcanine, dominant Pokemon. Huge fan.
And then the ones that you could get in blue but not red were Pinsir, Magmar, Bellsprout, Weepinbell, Victory Bell, Meowth/Persian. That's the friggin' dud. Vulpix and Ninetales and Sandshrew and Sandslash.
True good. That was a good one to
I
get.
think. So Ben, as someone who wasn't quite sure about the exclusive Pokemon, where are you leaning?
I mean, to me, Arcanine was one of the greats. So, Red to me has the better Pokemon. I also was not a huge Bellsprout, that kind of family fan. So, not being able to get them wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah, I hated Oddish because playing red, and there's heaps of like grassy areas where it's just Oddish galore, and you never found a Bellsprout. So I kind of, yeah, you're right, Sean. It is the grass is always greener on the other side.
It's an interesting thing to do with the game. Obviously, it's to like get people playing together and more people buying it, and yeah, like Ben mentioned, like in a household of siblings, it would make sense to buy multiple copies and stuff like that. But on a logistical level, it makes absolutely no sense that you're both playing in the exact same map, but on your version, it's like you're in another country because different animals appear. Doesn't really make sense. You know, like if you're in Pallet Town, you should always face Pallet Town indigenous species.
But I think imagine being a parent and like one's like, oh no, now we've got to go buy Pokemon Blue because there's some Pokemon we can't. I'd be like, screw that.
Also needed to buy a second Game Boy as well, so you could link them. So it wasn't. It was an expensive undertaking.
Yeah, did it save to the cartridge or to the device? To the device, surely.
Surely.
So could you save red and blue on one Game Boy?
Great question. I actually don't know.
I mean, you're right. It doesn't matter because you couldn't trade them anyway. But if it saves to the cartridge, at least that would save you buying an extra Game Boy.
The only other things that I thought were different were like in red, obviously it was like a pinkish hue, the screen when you're walking around, and blue, it was a blue background. In the Viridian Forest, I think in red, there's just like Weedles everywhere and not many Caterpies. And then in blue, there's Caterpies everywhere and hardly any Weedles, I think.
I mean, I remember that being the case for blue. Very rare to find a Weedle and Caterpies everywhere. And what a frustrating experience when you're only trying to catch a Weedle because you want 150 Pokemon.
Really?
Like, you don't want it for any other reason.
Kakuna and Metapod, the worst Pokemon?
Okay.
What about the is it Magikarp?
Yeah.
Let's not diss old Magikarp early in the podcast, please.
Were you guys frustrated when playing? I was a bit like you, Simpy. I watched the show religiously. When I finally got a Meowth, I was pretty upset it couldn't talk.
Agreed.
You played Yellow. You've mentioned off air that you played Yellow quite a lot, Ben. The only other things that I can think of in Yellow that were different from playing it with my cousins were, I think you're right. You obviously start off with Pikachu. You can only start off with Pikachu.
Correct. Yep.
And you can get Squirtle, Charmander, and Bulbasaur along the way.
Yeah, they like special things given to you after you do certain things. So if you beat like a gym, then you go into a house and there's like a cop there, and she gives you the Squirtle because you're a good trainer now and you can look after it and things like that. So they give you reasons why.
Bit done. And your rival starts with Eevee?
Yep, your rival starts with Eevee, and then depending on if you beat them in certain matchups later in the series or in the game, it will evolve into the Flareon or the Jolteon. It depends on how changes depending on what you do.
To be better against you?
I don't think so. I think it's just if you win this battle, it becomes Jolteon. If you lose the battle, it becomes Flareon. I think it's pretty just that's what it happens.
I just talking about Yellow and how it mimics the game. I just had a memory of my own that mimics the show. I started with the Charmander, which is obviously the worst one to start with, and so leveled him up, like grinded the shit out of it in the forest, so that his scratch was strong enough against Brock and Misty. And he evolved into a chameleon. And for a good next portion of the game, he wouldn't respond to my commands because he was too high a level for me.
Excellent.
That's I like that feature of the game.
Yeah, that was quite ahead of its time, I reckon.
It stops people from being OP too early. Like, you've got to get your badges.
Yes, so I watched someone who went with Charmander, and they only had a Charmander and a Kakuna when they battled Brock, and Charmander was real high level, which died, and he ended up winning the battle with Kakuna using Struggle because he had used Harden so many times that he didn't have another move to use apart from Struggle, which hits with recoil.
It's just pathetic.
It's a bad battle to watch.
On Yellow, there's a few other things that make it a bit more authentic to the storyline from the TV show. So you actually end up with Jesse and James instead of just the Team Rocket goons, which I always quite enjoyed because they had Ekans and Koffing and Meowth were their three Pokemon, so it was kind of true to the storyline. Similarly, as well, the Misty character, some of the actual characters themselves were the picture of them was changed to reflect the TV show as well, so that kind of aligned quite nicely with that. I mean, obviously, you could look at your Pikachu and see how it was feeling.
Did it follow you around?
Yeah.
Followed you around. It was out of its cage, out of its Pokeball, and it would follow you around, and you could look at it, and it would like smile at you or be grumpy depending on how you treated it. I quite liked as well, because obviously that was quite true to the
interesting point that I was hoping that we'd discuss. This is essentially like cage dog fighting in a kid's game, right? Like, you keep your animals literally stored in a tiny little ball. Are they real? Because they also live inside the Pokédex or something? Or no, you send them back to the. You send
prof.
them back. Oh, right, yeah.
No, you send them to Bill.
Yeah.
But the prof in the TV show, the prof gets them. Yeah. But in the game, you send them to someone's PC, and then it ends up being Bill's PC. I don't know how many Pokemon he's got caged.
On his, So, what do you reckon it's like in that pool?
I've never really thought about the ethical dilemma of the Pokemon, to be fair, but you make a good point that it is a bit like of a caged dogfighting ring.
Yeah,
these things are doing your bidding.
Yeah, you literally keep it stored up in a ball and release it to. I mean, Pokemon don't really die, but to seriously injure someone else's caged pet.
For your own reward. Nothing, they don't get anything. We're like Michael Vick.
They level up, I guess. I feel good.
Yeah. They most of them get 2 cracks at puberty.
Oh, there are a couple of things. Only other thing that I missed was different, which I didn't know until I researched. The beginning credits in red, it's a Gengar fighting a Nidorino, and then in blue, it's a Gengar fighting a Jigglypuff. There's a done Pokemon. All right.
One last thing just before we move on is just the Pokemon that you couldn't get in yellow. Just wrote a little list here for that. So yellow, you couldn't get Weedle, Kakuna, or Beedrill.
Really?
Yep. It was only pods, etc., in the forest that you could pick up. It was very frustrating. Caterpies. Kins and Arbok were in the game, but you couldn't actually get them yourselves. Same as Meowth and Persian. And Coughing and Wheezing, you would see them with Jesse and James, but you couldn't actually own them or have them yourselves. Raichu, Jinx, Electabuzz, and Magmar. So there's 13 Pokemon that you couldn't get in yellow. You could get them by trading. You could trade with blue and red. Everyone else, but yeah, you could. Those are the only 13 you couldn't get. So everyone else was available.
Not bad. 137/8. Did
Pretty
Pokemon
good.
Yellow have the same glitches?
Don't know. We talk about those glitches later. I'd like to hear about them. I knew of a couple, but I think there might be a few more. All right, we're going to go into ranking, or I guess we're ranking the starter Pokemon. I'm interested to know your three here. And I actually, I'm thinking I might make a very late controversial change. I'm going to go last, but I just want you to, and let's go reverse order. So go 3, 2, 1, and give us a little reason why. Maybe it's your number one or it's your last. Sean, you go first.
My last pick is Squirtle. Just think he's a bit dumb. And I guess tactically speaking, he's going to be good against Brock, but it's like for like fight against Misty. My two's Bulbasaur, just slightly more sass than a Squirtle, and good for your first two gym battles. And then my first pick's Charmander because Charizard's an absolute beast. Like I mean, all three of them level up to pretty awesome Pokemon, but Charizard not only is an awesome fire Pokemon, he's just badass.
Ben.
So I have Bulbasaur third.
Ooh.
I have never liked Bulbasaur or Venusaur or Ivysaur. I'd hated Vine Whip. I thought it was an absolutely pathetic move. Didn't do much damage, and I just thought it was really weak Pokemon. Squirtle at 2, and I considered putting Squirtle number 1. It's definitely the beginner's easiest Pokemon to start with, so if you're new to the game, I reckon you've got to go with Squirtle first because it's so easy to get past Brock. But for me, Squirtle I like because I like Blastoise. If you build up to a Blastoise is dominant. Got to be Charmander number 1, I agree, Sean. Agree with you there. Charizard is dominant, and in yellow you could actually fly. You could teach your Charizard to fly, and that was obviously huge. So you didn't need to have a bird-like Pokemon in yellow when you could teach Charizard fly. So for me, Charmander number 1, even though it was a grind to get through the first 2 gyms. For me, I used to always try to get a Butterfree. I'd build that one up, and that was kind of your ticket to the first 2 gyms, and then from there, Charmander / up to Charizard would just dominate.
All right. Well, I've got Squirtle third. A bit like Sean, I'm a bit meh about Squirtle. I'm going to go Charmander second and Bulbasaur first.
That's a terrible decision.
I think I'll be widely chastised for that. But I've got a couple of reasons. So Bulbasaur was Simon and I didn't know much about the game when we first played it, and Bulbasaur was who we did it with first.
Weren't you pretending to know heaps about the game before you played it?
Definitely, but I was just saying what Luigi said the day before. He definitely knew I was lying too. So a couple of reasons is nostalgia. Like that's the first Pokemon we went through with it. Ivysaur evolves into Venusaur at level 32, not 36. Even though I was quite keen to often put off my evolves just so that they built their speed up a little bit more before they did evolve. I think they all had the same stats pretty much, apart from a couple of different things. So Squirtle was real high in defense, which is real boring. Charmander was real high in speed, but Bulbasaur was real high in special, which I think is quite important. And I loved Venusaur having things like sleep powder and poison powder late in the game. They all had dud moves, and Venusaur particularly, I didn't really like Solar Beam. I thought it was a very horrific move. But also, like Charizard had Fire Spin, which was a dud. But those are my reasons why I'm going Bulbasaur over Charmander.
I disagree with everything you've just said, but you do you, bro.
Fair enough. All right. So now, where does Pikachu slot in your 4, Sean? In the 4, does he get a number 1 or is he at the bottom?
When I got him, finally, I wasn't that impressed, and I was so excited because I wanted him because of the show. But like if I had the option of playing today, and you said play red, blue, or yellow, I would still pick red or blue to start with Charmander. So for that reason, I'm not even going to rank him.
So 4.
Yeah, I guess so.
Fair.
Sim?
For me, it's number 1. I was just huge. I was a TV show nerd, and so the fact that I could be Ash, I made my name Ash, I made my villain Gary, wanted Pikachu, and so as soon as that option became available, I was just in heaven. And so all day, every day, I would pick Pikachu number 1. Doesn't matter the stats, I don't care. Loved the fact that Pikachu would follow you around. I just felt like I was actually in the TV show, and so I will always pick Pikachu number 1, no matter what you offered me.
And you couldn't evolve that Pikachu, right?
Pikachu not in yellow.
Wonder if he was like differently powered in Pokemon Yellow than the other Pokemon games. I don't know. Just
and
because
Thunderbolt was a very good move once you trained it up. It was a strong Pokemon.
When you played Yellow, did you also refuse the opportunity to turn him into a Raichu?
You can't. You just can't do it.
Can't.
It's not an option. No, Raichu's not even in the game at all. There's no Raichu. Apart from Lieutenant Surge has a Raichu. But I mean, like, you can't get a Raichu.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wasn't an option.
You wouldn't have taken it anyway, let's be honest.
Definitely not. It probably wasn't an option because of that reason that you had to have Pikachu follow you.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have a Raichu follow you. That makes sense.
I think if you weren't given Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur in Yellow, I would choose Pikachu. But in terms of ranking him in the 4, just purely as a Pokemon, he's 3rd. He goes above Squirtle, but below Charmander and Bulbasaur for me. He just, yeah. I did think about putting Pikachu, Raichu on my overrated list, which we're going to get to now. Good segue. We'll do a little round table here, and we'll start with underrated, and we'll get to our overrated second. So, Sean, you mentioned off air you can't remember many Pokemon.
It would be good for me to go last in the round table to hear what people say to remind me of some of the Pokemon.
All right, Ben, do you want to start with one of your underrated Pokemon?
Yeah, my number 1 underrated Pokemon was Shelder. Hopefully I've stolen that off you because that Pokemon, Shelder dominates. Ice and water together. Ridiculously strong defense. When you can do moves like Aurora Beam and Ice Beam, which were 2 of my favorites, I was always a fan. The water-ice combo was just really dominant, and I think not a lot of people, because of the look maybe, I'm not too sure, but they wouldn't have had a Shelder in their 6 when they were battling people, but it was definitely a great Pokemon to have.
Yeah, well, I had
Google Shelder.
Well, I didn't have Shelder on my list. I had Cloyster on my list, but the same thing basically. I remember.
Sorry,
I remember in the Elite Four, the first, the ice. What's her name? I can't remember what her name was. She had a cloister that was real difficult to beat because of its high defense. So Lorelei, that's right. That was one of my underrated ones. I'll go with one of my favorites. And this is if I didn't start with Bulbasaur, was Execute/Executor, but specifically Executor. And you did mention Ice and Water before, because Executor had grass moves and psychic moves. And in later generations, it become, they do have more than one type. But in the first one, it was a grass Pokemon that still could do hypnosis and confusion. So I thought Psychic Grass was quite a cool combo, and it had good base stats. It was a bit of a beast that could put people to sleep, paralyze them, poison them. I thought Executor was very underrated. Sean, should we skip you? Have you got one?
No, I do have one. And it comes probably more from fighting against them than utilizing them. Doduo and Dodrio caused me a lot of carnage, and I think when I did use my Dodrio, it was actually quite an effective Pokemon. Happy to be told I'm wrong.
Wait till we get to my overrated section, and you might be.
Yeah.
Simpy.
Randomly, because I didn't put them first, but I'm going to throw out Squirtle there, only for the Blastoise factor. Because it was just such a powerful Pokemon, Blastoise, to me, and so the grind to get Squirtle to Blastoise was obviously a long one. I think if you look at the attack stats across all the Pokemon in Gen 1, Blastoise is in the top 5, I believe. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. But it's definitely up there, and the moves were great, and it was really a strong Pokemon. So I think most people, as you guys both don't like Squirtle that much. You grind to Blastoise, you really get rewarded, and with a very strong Pokemon.
I think the base stats add up to, all the three starting, the base stats add up to like 425 or something, which is definitely top 20. But like Cloyster is like 480 or something, like it's real high.
Yeah,
probably
good
because
Pokemon.
it's got such a high defense. My next, I've probably got I've got two more. I'm going to go with a random one here. I'm going to go with Muck. Poison, not often used, but high HP, high attack. I think Poison not being used that much, I think it's a bit, Poison as a type is a little bit underrated, because if you can just sow that seed with a beast Pokemon, get it poisoned early in a battle, it just nicks away, takes further and further off. It's not a sexy Pokemon, let's just say it, but Muck was definitely one of my underrated ones, which I quite liked, rounding out my 6.
Mind it?
Me?
Yeah, you, Sean.
I've got one more, I guess, and I don't even know if it's underrated or not. It definitely suffers for being what kind of type it is, so it's not very useful against flying types. But if it against the opponents that it is quite strongly against, I think a Sandslash is actually a very powerful Pokemon.
I agree. Like it.
Yeah, can go pretty good. Also, I think it looks pretty rad.
Definitely. Looks matter.
Looks definitely matter, and it can dig. Dig was quite like dig as a move.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good as far as the ground Pokemon go.
All right, Ben, any more?
Yeah, good segue there with the dig factor. So my last one, I've spoken of it earlier in this podcast, was Arcanine. Maybe not underrated. Lots of people do like it, but I think the actual skill of it was a bit underrated because it could learn dig, which was great. So it's fire Pokemon that could learn dig was fantastic. Flamethrower was one of my favorite moves as well. I think the only downside to it, maybe why I think it's a little bit underrated, is you did need a Firestone to evolve it. And that can be a bit of a hassle. But I think, Arcanine to me was a really, really good Pokemon.
Overrated, if anything. I've just got one more random. I just quite like Tentacruel. Was a bit of a beast, and if you didn't have a water Pokemon, just chuck it in there, give it Surf, and it also could poison if need be. I was a little bit of a fan of the poison.
You can tell that.
All right, Overrated. We'll go the same order, so Sean can have a bit of time to think.
Do you want me to say all the reasons why Sean shouldn't have said Dugtrio right now?
He said Dodrio.
Dugtrio. Oh, I apologize. Sorry, I thought you said Dugtrio. I was about to get it.
Yeah. I was talking about Doduo and what is Dotrio, whatever they're called. The two-headed and three-headed ones. You know, that real common evolutionary thing where you go through puberty and grow an extra head.
Yeah, I was about to drop some fire on you then, but now I've got to pull that back because you said the different Pokemon to what I was thinking.
We'll carry on then because Dugtrio is on the top of my list.
Mine is Diglett. Mine's Diglett is my overrated. I think lots of people used it because they wanted the dig from the Diglett. They liked that move, and obviously you couldn't get hurt when it dug into its hole. It was just a shit Pokemon. It only had that one move. It had terrible health. It had terrible defense. You get knocked out all the time. It was a pointless Pokemon to me, and I really fucking hated going through that tunnel. I hated the Diglett tunnel, whatever it was called. It used to annoy me so much, and so that is one of the reasons I just can't stand that Pokemon.
I think that's why people used to have it in their 6 or whatever, but then quickly probably realised how shit it was.
It was a shocker.
Yeah, Diglett and Dugtrio were definitely on the top of my list. I'll come back to a reason why later when I link it into something else. Ditto is, I don't even think it's over. I don't think it's rated. I just don't understand why you would ever use a Ditto in a battle.
On my list. Definitely.
It makes absolutely no sense to transform into the same Pokemon to fight it.
Agreed. Yeah, that's the same type. It never works. What are you doing?
A shitter version of it, pretty much. Yeah, Ditto. Bob?
This is hard to choose because I can't really remember them very well, so I'll just pick one of them because I'm almost grouping a bunch of Pokemon here. So I'm going to go with Gengar. Just wasn't overly impressed with the ghost Pokemon, generally speaking. Obviously annoying to fight until you get the Sylph Scope, is it?
Yeah.
I'm impressed that I got that.
What's the Poke Flute do? That's the one that wakes them up.
That wakes up the big fella.
Yeah.
And so, like, they're real hard to fight. Then you get the thing and you can fight them, and then you catch one and you're like, fuck yeah. And then you use it and this fucking sucks.
Are you talking about Ghastly or Gengar? Because Gengar's the one you have to trade to get.
Right, yeah. Whatever.
So Ghastly.
In general,
Ghost Pokemon.
Yeah. Pokemon in general are awful.
Yeah.
We can all agree on that one.
All
right, maybe not.
I think there's another group of Pokemon that can be easily grouped together, but you go next, Sim.
I had Ditto, so this is my last one on my overrated list. Is Scyther.
Oh yeah.
Looks great. Looks cool. Great looking Pokemon. I was always stoked whenever I got it. You get it from the Safari Zone, so you're like, oh, this Pokemon's going to be awesome. And you use it, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Moves are awful. It doesn't learn anything good. And it's just not a very good Pokemon. And it's really disappointing, because when you look at it, you look and you think, shit, this thing's going to dominate, and it just there's nothing going for it.
I think you think it's going to be a grass Pokemon, and it's a bug Pokemon, which are just not very strong. Although, I'd rather a bug Pokemon than a rock Pokemon. Pretty much every rock Pokemon is overrated. They have a lot of weaknesses that are like common weaknesses that you know, like everyone has a water Pokemon or everyone has a grass Pokemon. So rock is shit. I think the only rock Pokemon that's maybe passable is Rhyhorn. But rock Pokemon is my next. I guess it's a group of them on my list.
Was Kangaskhan a rock Pokemon?
Ground or normal, maybe?
Maybe normal, yeah. I was going to say that's the only one I was thinking of that wasn't too bad, but not many rock ones were very good.
I never knew Kangaskhan was too hard to catch.
Truth.
You had to throw lots of bait and then hit it with a rock.
I'll get to my thoughts on the Safari Zone later. I've got some fire coming out.
Any more from you two? I've got one more group of Pokemon, of overrated Pokemon.
Group.
Yeah.
I'm done. My list is done. Sean?
Yeah, I mean, you just took out all of the rock Pokemon, so I was quite happy to throw a Geodude in there, but I don't know if it was ever rated in the first place, right? I'm just saying shit Pokemon now.
Whoever came up with that Pokemon, it's just a rock with arms.
Yeah, maybe like a Paris or a Parasect, but they weren't ever rated, I wouldn't say.
Don't mind the thought put behind Paris and Parasect, though.
Yeah, potentially.
Is Jigglypuff worth a mention?
Oh,
Did people rate Jigglypuff?
Punch was pretty good.
Okay.
I
Maybe it just annoyed me on the show.
I thought the Pokemon that you would gather in a weird way generally weren't good. So Farfetch'd, or overrated Farfetch'd, Mr. Mime, Diglett and Dugtree, you could only get them in that cave. Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, not a fan.
Not many moves.
Yeah, overrated for me with those ones. Moving from overrated, who were your go-tos? And let's not we won't do a round table for this, but maybe like a couple of Pokemon that were always in your party of 6. And not just that, maybe you could talk a little about your strategy of leveling up Pokemon here, or because some Pokemon don't come into the game until a lot later. And we'll start with you, Ben, for this one, and then we'll go to Sean.
Yeah, so for me, my number one, always, every single save I've ever done, even as a 33-year-old bloke doing it about 3 months ago, always had a Gyarados. Every single time. Absolutely dominant Pokemon, so strong. And my little hack, or I guess maybe a little bit of a bitch way to get one, was I always bought it from the dude at the Mount Moon Poke Center.
Yep.
It was obviously Magikarp was terrible, but you put the Magikarp at the number 1 slot, then trade it out after the first round. It develops those HP points, and then level 20 it evolves to Gyarados, and you are absolutely fucking creaming. It was my favorite Pokemon.
Grind.
The grind, but it was my favorite Pokemon in the game. I love Gyarados so much. I always had it. It was just awesome. It was dominant.
Any other go-to Pokemon you stuck in your mind or in your party of Pokemon?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. Abra, or I liked Alakazam. If you could get it there, which was always a bit of a grind as well. But Psychic I thought was always quite good. It attacked the Psychic attack seemed to work on quite a lot of different Pokemon. I was a big fan. Also, Abra, Alakazam had Seismic Toss, which I always quite enjoyed as well. It was quite a powerful move. And the last one was Lapras. So my strategy, I guess, was a bit strange because I had Gyarados and Lapras and Charizard, so 3 kind of dragon-y sort of Pokemon. But for me, I guess I was always going for power. So the powerful Pokemon were the strong Pokemons were the ones I always kind of wanted. So I enjoyed the Lapras. Thunderbolt, when you could do that with a water type kind of dragon Pokemon was pretty awesome. I mean, obviously you got it as a gift as well, so you didn't have to really work too hard to get it, which was quite nice. The Silphco, I believe.
Yeah, well, you've mentioned 3 of mine.
Sorry about that.
Sean?
So no matter who I was fighting, I carried my Charizard. I had Gyarados as well, and Alakazam were probably. I was going to lead with I changed all the time because when I got a new Pokemon that was interesting, I kept it in my thing, and I was a grinder, so I always carried a couple that I was trying to level up and things like that. But probably those 3 at least, were always in there and I didn't necessarily know who I was going to be fighting against a lot of the time, so sometimes I could go in and lose and come out and go, okay, fuck, I need to change my tactics here. But if I was just going in blind, I'd have those 3.
Yeah, you mentioned Lapras, Gyarados, and I put Kadabra, not Alakazam, because I never traded to get Alakazam. I would just have Kadabra. Um, I, I put Haunter. Haunter ended up in a lot of my teams of 6. Probably wouldn't now because it's not a great Pokemon, but I got a soft spot for Haunter. Looks cool too. Mentioned Executor before. If I didn't go with Bulbasaur, I liked having the Psychic Grass option. And look, I needed someone to fly. I often just kept my level 2 Pidgey that I caught in Viridian Forest and had a Pidgeot often.
I became very fond of my Pidgeot for that reason because I did have to carry it a lot and it just had to feature and I became
It was
attached.
a huge advantage of yellow with Charizard being able to fly. Massive, because you had an extra slot available where you didn't have to use one of those bird Pokemon, which I think, while not being very strong, obviously you had to have fly.
I do recall as well. Obviously, I did quite a lot of grinding to get to that situation I spoke about earlier with a Charmeleon who didn't listen to me. I also had a Pidgeotto, and so at that early point of the game, that was quite a strong Pokemon for me as well. And so there was that sort of attachment from the early stage.
Sean spoke a little bit about his leveling up strategy. We know he's a grinder. He probably wanted to always try and catch 150 or as many Pokemon as he could. What was your strategy, Ben?
When I was younger, it was definitely just to try and get through the game as fast as I could. I think I wanted to just win the battles, have cool Pokemon. I didn't really care about getting as many Pokemon as I could. I definitely just went for the cool Pokemon. And if it was a shit Pokemon like a Rattata, I was like, I'm not going to bother throwing a Pokeball at you because I don't really care about you. So I usually probably would end the game around about the 30 or 40 Pokemon mark. When I was young and when I was, into it. And then as more of an adult player when I was using, online, etc. I was more of a grinder, so I'd probably try to get around the 100. I never got anywhere close to 150. Like around 100 would have been my max ever. Definitely tried to level up, but I got bored of that quite quickly and just went to beating people as quickly as I could.
I think I just flipped that on its head for me. Earlier on, I had a lot more time on my hands and would grind the shit out of it and try and get as many Pokemon as I can. And I would always be carrying 6 Pokemon. Even if they were shit, I would have them, and for some reason I would use them in battles. It's like, what's the fucking point? I'm not going to end up using them. But then later on, as an adult, I'm like, all right, well, I want to try something a bit different this time. I'm going to start with Squirtle, and these are the Pokemon that I want. At the start of the game, I'm going to look forward. I want to have a muck, and so I'll often would just level up 2 Pokemon all the way through to the 3rd gym, and just have 2 really, really strong Pokemon, and then I'll add my 3rd, and so I end up not having many Pokemon at all in later playthroughs, I guess. All right. We've got the last couple of things. Side quests. Now, this is a specific request from Simpy, and he's talked a little bit about the Safari Zone already. I feel like you're not a big fan of it.
I definitely didn't like it. It used to frustrate me. Like you'd go in and you'd get going and you'd find a new spot and then you'd hear but the bell would go off and you'd have to go back to the start and be like, fucking hell, I just made it like all the way. I got to do it again. You got to run through, make sure you don't hit any obstacles so you get stuck and it takes up your time. And when you did come across a Pokemon you wanted to get, always fucking run away.
Yeah.
I get so mad. Because you spent a lot of time, I think, in the Safari Zone grinding and taking ages just running around trying to find things, and it always would, like, over the intercom you get sent back to the start and you never had anything. So I wasn't a fan. I like the concept, didn't like the execution maybe.
I agree. Often grinding for no gain as well. Like grinding to get your Pokemon leveled up, absolutely fine. I'm happy to spend 2 hours in that long grass leveling up my Magikarp.
Memory, there was no clock, was there? You just had to kind of guesstimate how long you had.
Yeah, I think it said.
Yeah, that irritated me as well. A clock would have been nice. I would have been happier. I think I would have been okay with it if there was a countdown clock that you kind of had. How hard would that have been to do on screen? Just put a little
Not
clock. Not hard.
Sean, Safari Zone, any thoughts?
Barely remember it.
Mm.
Just looked it up and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Cool Pokemon you could get in there.
Mm.
Another thing that I thought of was Game Corner. Do you remember Game Corner at all, Sean?
Sounds familiar.
Celadon City, I believe it was in, and you got given a coin case.
Yes, I remember.
And you could, it was just slots. Could you do anything else other than slots?
Nah, you could obviously buy stuff with the winnings you got there.
Mm.
Like Abra. That's how I usually got an Abra, because it was like 230 coins or something.
So I did that.
That's the only way you can get a Porygon.
Yeah, what a pointless Pokemon that Pokemon is.
So did you?
So how many coins?
How
many coins it cost you? It was shit.
Did you do a bit of Game Corner sim?
Yeah, I loved it. I think there was a glitch. I'm trying to remember exactly. I haven't looked it up, so forgive me if I get it wrong. But there was something to do with like if you did 4 of them in a row, and one of them like hit 2 little wins, you just make sure you stay on that machine because it would like hit the jackpot. Something like that. There was like you did 4 in a row, and then if one of those 4 had 2 wins, you made sure you stayed on it because the system would be hot. It was a jackpot time, etc., and you won quite a lot of coins. So I definitely remember getting lots of coins from using that glitch. Maybe cheat, maybe glitch.
That sounds like Sean's strategy at Eastab and Batoni.
Stay on the hot machines. Never leave a hot machine.
I've never been one for the slots.
It was you had to get like lucky sevens or a bar or something like that.
Or something, yeah. It was just like a slot machine.
Yeah, I didn't spend much. I remember Simon spending hours on that stupid Game Corner.
Yeah, I think we all had the misconception that the Porygon was going to be one of these amazing Pokemons because it costs like 9,999 coins. And so everyone was like, shit, it must be amazing. And definitely wasn't.
You get a Dratini there too, eh?
I think so.
Good little Pokemon. All right. One more. I got 2 more things. Legendary birds. But a bit of a side quest. You probably don't necessarily need to do it. We'll go to Sean first. What were your thoughts on the legendary birds, Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno?
I put in a lot of time to get them, and then I barely use them.
I agree with that.
They look cool though.
They do look cool. They look a lot better than the other bird Pokemon.
So I think the frustrating thing about them was if you accidentally killed them, they were gone forever. That was so depressing. If you accidentally hit like the wrong move, or you were trying to go fast and you like did I don't know, whatever it was that was too powerful of a move, and then they end up dying, and you're just like, well, shit.
It's time that again. It's time for another cheating confession. So there was a glitch. I don't remember it exactly, but I think you had to have surf. I'm not sure exactly, or you ran along a coastline.
Yes,
I can talk about this.
Yes,
so
remember this.
And so you could get double up items.
99 items.
Yeah, and so I had no problems with the legendary birds. So I grinded first, and I think I got one, and like restarting because you Mars and stuff like that, and then I learned about the glitch, and then solved that problem.
Master Ball.
Yeah.
Surely
I don't like
missing
your
no
style.
glitch. Cinnabar Island, wasn't it? You go
missing no.
Missing no. You fought the missing no, and if you beat them, then your 6th item was on 99.
Yeah.
I was always a fan of doing it with rare candy and then just pumping up my Pokemon.
And was it nuggets so you could go and sell them
for 5,000?
Yeah.
That was huge.
Quick question then, because I didn't play Game Boy. So in terms of, because what I used to do on computer, you could save wherever, and I don't know whether you could do that on Game Boy. So I would just save before I got into the battle with them, and so I would never not get them.
You could. I think early on I didn't know that you couldn't go back. So as a kid, you wouldn't there was obviously the internet wasn't really a massive thing at the time. So you'd
Yeah.
come across this legendary bird and be like, holy shit, and then fight it, try get it, but then obviously if you ended up killing it, you'd be like, oh cool, and then just die. So you go back and then just go back and try see it again, and it wasn't there. Frustrating.
I've got no more side quests on here. Anything else to add, or
Just, I don't even remember what they were, but much like Final Fantasy, I did not enjoy the help this person by going and getting this, finding this thing, or oh, I've lost my blah blah blah. Can you help me, motherfucker? I'm on a mission.
Lots of that when you were trying to get new places, and you went through the barrier, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm thirsty. Can you get me a drink?" You're like, "Well, fuck. Can't you get your drink yourself, you bitch?"
that was the guy you couldn't get through some. You couldn't get from one city to another, like around those middle ones where it's like Saffron City to Celadon City or something. The guide won't let you through, eh?
There was the one from after you fought Misty, and then there was the guy who offered you daycare for your
Big daycare
around
fan.
there was one you could go through, and they wouldn't let you through because they were parched.
Because there's a couple that were important, right? Like you have to help the captain on the boat or something to get one of the hidden machines.
Was it cut?
Cut. And for strength, you have to find someone's teeth. Gold
That's
teeth.
right, the gold teeth. Yeah,
Yeah.
old bloke.
Yeah, some old fella.
Yeah,
but then that's like you can stomach that because there's a reward.
Definitely.
But if
the ones that were
yeah, it's off.
All right. Any other things to discuss, or any more questions you've got for each other?
I've just got a few tidbits or things I didn't know that I still only knew. One of them I only found out about 20 minutes ago when I looked it up before we started this podcast. That absolutely shook me.
Really?
I never realized when you fought a trainer, you lost half your money if you lose.
It's news to me.
If you
I didn't know that at all. You lose like half of your money when you lose to a trainer in a trainer battle.
Does it have to be a trainer?
Yeah.
You don't lose your money to a bug catcher.
No, as in to any Pokemon
Any
trainer.
battle.
So, any battle apart from wild Pokemon, you don't.
Wow.
I didn't know that. I am shocked that I didn't know that because you'd think you would pay attention to that.
I was going to say you lose half your gil, but this isn't a Final Fantasy podcast.
I was going to talk about is the little glitch as well, similar to the missing no glitch, but if you swum along if you surfed, right on Cinnabar Island, right on the cusp between land and water, Pokemon that would appear would actually be the Pokemon from the last place you were. This is in yellow. I'm not sure if it was in red or blue.
Oh, random.
So if you were in the Safari Zone, then you went to you flew straight to Cinnabar Island and surfed alongside that area. Kangaskhan's would appear and Scythers would appear, etc. So that was definitely the best way to get them. That was a weird little glitch that for some reason it did that. There was also a glitch to fight Professor Oak, which was quite interesting. It was quite fun. A lot of random steps. Please don't make me go into it. I can't remember exactly, but you could go through all these steps that you could fight him, and he had level 60, 70 Pokemon. They were pretty awesome. So it was just a little bit of fun.
There was obviously a glitch to be able to get Mew.
Mm-hmm.
That's very complicated and convoluted, and when I tried to do it, I learned that I'd mucked it up already. You kind of had to know it from the start because you had to fight specific trainers or something at a certain time. I can't remember.
I think it's something to do with Nugget Bridge in Cerulean City.
Yep.
But I don't know exactly what it is. Last thing I probably should have said at the start, but what a friggin' plot and what a amazing story. I distinctly remember explaining this to my grandparents, and they were gobsmacked by the story and the thought behind it. It's a credit to the creators as to the, children, primary school teacher, and there are children at primary school every year who go through a Pokemon phase.
100%. Pokemon cards are huge at the school that I'm at the moment.
Cards, Pokemon Go. My daughter, who's 4, and my nephews, who are 5 and 3, like watching Pokemon. They enjoy the Pokemon cards. So it's obviously extremely captivating. I don't know if you guys have played other generations. I've dabbled in a lot of the other generations, and I enjoy them just as much. I get lost in the worlds very easily, even as a 33-year-old adult.
It speaks to Japanese game creators being miles ahead of the curve in the 90s, right? So obviously we've brought up Final Fantasy a few times, and that's, it's as much the storyline as anything else, even if it is very confusing and convoluted. But this is another masterstroke storyline. Like the gameplay, for what it's worth, is great. Turn-based fighting games are quite fun, but it's the storyline in a lot of these instances, and a lot of other games around at the time. Like you talk about the Game Boy, you're talking about like side-scrolling Super Mario, or like fighting games, sport games. They all have their place, but these games are like genuinely gripping for a reason.
Yeah.
I agree as well, and say that like Pokemon, obviously, like the world of Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, pretty massive for a Game Boy game. You think about how long ago that was, and the fact that there was so many different gyms to go to, so many different things, side quests and things to do. Like even today, some of the games you get on like PS4 and stuff, not even as long. Like it doesn't take you as long to complete them. It was a pretty massive world play as a 10-year-old at the time that you could really get lost in and spend a lot of hours backwards and forwards and into different rooms and into different houses, and things were happening, and it was amazing. Like an incredible game.
Did you say 30-year-old or 10-year-old?
A 10-year-old and a 33-year-old. Probably I'll still play it as a 50-year-old because I'm generation 1 till I die.
Yeah. All right. Nothing else from you two?
I'm good.
Hey,
I said my piece.
bloody good job, Simpy.
Thanks, mate.
Be a pleasure. It might get you on for maybe some Seinfeld. And I hear there's a rumor that you like Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
I've always been a fan, and it would be nice to bring this podcast a bit more upmarket, a bit more into the upper echelon of, talking about some highbrow stuff.
I'm pretty excited to talk about the scene where he takes a dinger.
All right. Cheers, guys.